Not going to go over the scoring plays in this one. Not going to do that. This was a bad loss and a heartbreaking loss, and a loss that shows you the promise of this football team and the issues of why they cannot reach that promise. And it's not just one player. One player is who everyone's going to talk about, and justifiably so, to a point. But the Seahawks lost this game for a lot of reasons. Let's start with the positive. It seems like there should be some sort of introduction or something like that, but you know who I am. You know what we're talking about. The Seahawks lost 26-20 in overtime. They fall to 4-5 on the season. They're 0-2 in the division. I do think there are positives from this game. Do they outweigh the negatives? Of course not. Not even close. But there are some positives to take from this game. The Seahawks defense in the first half was spectacular. As well as I've seen them play against a real team. Now, look, they showed the stat that they were for the first 3 weeks, they were the best team in terms of yards per play allowed. Look at who they played. They played a Bo Nix who was completely overmatched in his first NFL game, Jacoby Brissett, and a combination of Tim Boyle and Skylar Thompson. Okay. Those aren't real. Those aren't real. Those are not indicative. Those are not litmus tests. In fact, it's the opposite. If they would have struggled against those, yeah. But they played a real team today. And they played really well in the first half defensively against that real team. Really well. I mean, Leonard Williams, I think, had his best game as a Seattle Seahawk, even if the box score doesn't tell you. I haven't really looked at the box score. I just got back from Grandma's, and we were both just shaking our heads at this game. Like, they didn't get a single sack today. That's not indicative of, I think, the pressure that they generated for a lot of this game. And I thought the run defense was fantastic. Ernest Jones is quickly becoming one of my favorite Seahawks. Tyrell Dodson, I thought, played a solid game. Byron Murphy, I thought, played a really solid game. He and Leonard Williams up the middle was huge today because you held a pretty good rushing attack completely in check. Especially in the first half, I thought that the pass defense, or excuse me, the entire defense was excellent. Second half, some issues, but the defense played well enough to win today. The defense absolutely played well enough to win today. Some other individual positives. So Jackson Smith-Njigba, that first interception's on him. It wasn't a perfect throw. We'll talk about the guy who threw it at the end. But you got to catch that pass. Hits you in the hands. It's a big third down. You got to catch that pass. And I was very disappointed because it looked like today was going to be a huge day for Jackson Smith-Njigba, and it needed to be. And that second attempt, clanks off his hands and goes into the defender's arms. Everything past that, and even the play before that, where he sets up that third down possibility, it was 2nd and 31. He sets up that possibility with a really nice play. And then the ball clangs off his hands, and you're kind of wondering, oh no. Well, from that point on, Jackson Smith-Njigba was a stud. An absolute stud. The type of performance that you watch and say, oh, this guy can be not only a wide receiver one someday, this guy has the talent to be one of the top dozen or so wide receivers in the NFL. That's my humble estimation. Humble-ish. No, I'm a big believer in his talent, and I haven't loved how they've used him, but I like how they used him today in part because DK Metcalf not available. And Tyler Lockett, love him. Can't do the same things as DK Metcalf. He's a very different football player. This was a performance that reminds you that Smith and Jigba, flawed, still has work to be done. Not a surprise for somebody who's played a total of 24 games? At most, he's played 26, but I think he's missed a game before. So, anyway, not important. A very clear lack of experience. There's going to be issues. It doesn't excuse the drop that goes into the receiver's hands. Well, not a perfect throw, but one he absolutely has to catch. But you see what he can do. You see the upside in that guy. That was the most encouraging thing from this game. I thought Kenneth Walker ran really, really, really hard. We'll get into the negatives in a sec. But I'm always so impressed with the effort Kenneth Walker makes, even playing behind. It's never a question of, oh, Kenneth Walker, you're just trying way too hard to develop that big play. And there's times, where any running back, waits for that setup and doesn't get the job done. For the most part, Kenneth Walker just runs really flipping hard and doesn't go down on that first tackle. And thank goodness he doesn't, because this run game would be, well, you know what, and far from home. Thought he ran really hard, and I'm glad Kenneth Walker's a Seahawk. Any other positives? Cody White, just the 2 catches. Can't ask for a much bigger one than he had on that sideline. AJ Barner, I thought was okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for individual efforts. Is there anybody on defense that I really wanted to single out either? No. Let's single out Simply Seattle, who provides the very best in Seattle sports gear and offers you a 15% discount, whether you're buying stuff for the Seahawks, the Mariners, the Kraken, the Sounders. Love this hat. Storm, Supersonics. You can find it all at simplyseattle.com. If you use code MOLLYWHOP15, it takes 15% off your order. Shows you're paying attention, shows that you are supporting the show. That's the weird, long way to say that. Please check out simplyseattle.com and please go buy a bunch of stuff. And please use that code MOLLYWHOP15. And the link is simplyseattle.com. All right, let's get into the negatives. You got to end with Geno. You got to end with it. So, the offensive line, just garbage. A garbage performance. I don't know how else to put it. I thought I might be ending with Connor Williams in the negative section, but we got to end with Geno. Connor Williams is bad. Now, that first snap that was fumbled was not his fault, but the second one, and it's becoming an issue. It's becoming a major issue. And he's just not a good blocker, on top of the fact that the snaps have been bad. The simplest thing in football, almost the only thing you cannot have, the only automatic that you should be having in this sport is the snap getting to the quarterback. It should be the same percentage, if not higher, as a ground ball to your shortstop or a ground ball to your second baseman, or more accurately, a pop-up. That should happen 999 times out of 1,000. It's not happening right now. And on top of that, he can't block. And the offensive line just stunk today. There were some interesting moments of good, intriguing more than interesting, I guess I should say, but not enough. Not enough. You just have to be better. And credit to the Rams, they've got Jared Verse and uh, I always forget how to pronounce his name, but his teammate at Florida State who just beat the crap out of the Seahawks today. They're good players. And the Rams are going to be a problem. I was super excited not to see Aaron Donald line up, and then we saw somebody who's not ever going to be as good as Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald's the best defensive player I've ever seen, but it's pretty darn good and dominated Seattle today. And Jared Verse had some moments too. Let's talk about the overtime because I loved the push that they generated on 2 big run plays and then a very nice pass to JSN to set them up into scoring position. And you get a 3rd and 1, and you go hurry up, and it doesn't work. And I have no problem whatsoever with going for it on 4th down there. What I do have a problem with is after a timeout, setting up that play. Just a typical ISO run. Your offensive line isn't good enough for that. It's just not good enough for that. And I hate that play call with the fire of 10,000 suns. And I really like Ryan Grubb. I'm appreciative of what Ryan Grubb did for the Huskies, and I can't ignore that. If you're not a Husky fan, that's fine. But I can't ignore it. And I can't also deny that there have been great moments for Ryan Grubb where I've said, oh, this guy's going to be a special offensive play caller. And there have been moments too where I feel like there's more of an adjustment period than I was hoping for. In part, results, the offense has not been good or these last outside of the Atlanta performance since the 3-0 start. And the Atlanta performance, you had the benefit of 3 turnovers. So, but I hated that play call. I had no issue going for it. Score a touchdown, go win the game. Don't put a 85% chance of making the field goal and then a 55 to 60% chance of making the stop. Now go for it on 4th and short. Go score the touchdown, make it 100% chance that you win the football game. By the way, I'm seeing my internet bars are kind of low. Really bad weather out here, but hopefully the audio is still working because I'm not re-recording this. But I have no problem going for it. Show more creativity. One of the things, and look, I get that college is more of a gimmicky game than the NFL. I get it. You have to do stuff like that. But just a straight ISO run on 4th down, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't like that play call at all. Like, look, this is kind of like when movie reviewers write their own scripts for how they'd like it, and everybody just, dunks on them. So I'm not going to offer you like 20 plays, but little fake action to the fullback and pitch out to Walker. Get him outside. Can't really say rolling out Geno is the best idea because your offensive line just hasn't been good enough to suggest that's a great idea. But I know this, running the ball basically up the middle, essentially up the middle on 4th and 1 inside that territory is a horrible idea. And in process, it didn't work. And in result, it really didn't work. And then the Rams get the football back. And I am a huge Tariq Woolen fan. I cannot ignore what he was as a rookie. And he has a pick today. And I think that there were some real flashes, but there are spurts where Tariq Woolen looks like he doesn't like playing football. And effort has been an issue. And I hate calling out effort for anyone. Professional athletes work their what's off to get in shape to do what they do. And I'm not saying that Tariq Woolen is lazy. I'm not saying that Tariq Woolen doesn't care. I'm not saying that Tariq Woolen doesn't have an understanding of how the sport works. But there are just some plays, man. There are some plays that are just unacceptable. And one of those plays was not going to get that interception. And, he gets called for the pass interference on that last drive. And I thought that was a bad call because I thought the ball was uncatchable, but it was illegal contact. It was certainly illegal contact. There are just moments where Tariq Woolen doesn't seem to put himself in the best position. And it's extremely frustrating because in terms of talent, here's a hot, spicy take for you. In terms of talent and build, I don't think there's a better cornerback in the NFL. And just the God-given, and apologies for anybody who gets offended by that, whatever. In terms of just the ability and the size, the speed, and the reaction times, I don't think there's a better cornerback. But I'm trying to be careful here because I don't want to say something silly. But there are times where that talent doesn't matter because Tariq Woolen doesn't do a good enough job. And I'm sorry, Reek Woolen. And that's not me being anything but forgetting that's what he wants to go by now. But there are times that Reek Woolen just doesn't go and get the football or doesn't make the effort. And lackadaisical is the term I keep coming back to. Long story short, and I'm talking long, he's got to be better. He's got to be better, especially considering the defenders they have behind him. Like Kobe Bryant, okay. Josh Jobe, nice little depth pickup. They're not the guys. Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon have the talent and ability, and I thought Devin Witherspoon played pretty darn well today. But they have the ability, the size, everything you're looking for to be the best 1-2 combo. And for the most part, I think Devin Witherspoon has lived up to that. And I think Reek Woolen has at times lived up to that. Not enough. And today, especially that ball that he just waited on. Can't happen. Can't happen. And the touchdown throw, I mean, what a catch. What an absolutely brilliant catch by that dude. And a pretty well thrown ball by Stafford as well. But set up by a really bad play. I'm not going to call it lazy. I'm going to call it bad. Okay, 19 minutes in. Let's talk about Geno. Because we've already talked about it a little bit. That first interception, not really on him. Not a perfect throw. Not a perfect throw, but he put it in the position where Ejigba should be able to make that play. JSN should be able to make that play, and it hit him in the gosh damn hands, right in the middle of his hands, and he dropped it, and he gets picked off. I have a hard time blaming him for that. I have a hard time blaming him for all of the sacks today. I think that he ended up getting sacked 7 times. I'm going to look at that real quick. Yep, 7 times for 46 yards. And that yardage total tells you that he wasn't like running out of the pocket or anything like that for the most part. He was hanging on behind a really bad offensive line. And there were a couple of plays where I was kind of screaming, you got to get rid of it. You got to get rid of it. But There were some plays I didn't have time to yell that because this offensive line is so bad that they didn't have time to do that. So, yes, first pick, not really his fault at all. Most of the sacks, not really his fault. And I'll continue with the positives. Touchdown throws were spectacular. The touchdown throw to JSN to send the game into overtime is an elite throw. The throw before that on a perfectly set up, people are going to accuse me of not knowing my football here. I always forget what they call that, but the scissor route, for lack of a better term, where JSN comes around on a pick. Perfect throw. Perfect throw. And there were some elite throws from Geno Smith today. The touchdowns were all great throws. The throw to Cody White down the sideline, perfect amount of touch on that throw. So there was a lot of great from Geno Smith today. However, there was also some decision making today that is unexcusable. Inexcusable. I always say unexcusable. It just sounds better. Both of those interceptions inside the goal line or inside the red zone. One of them inside the end zone. Were pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And I wish you could just have a conversation about Geno Smith and say, boy, there sure is a lot of good here and there sure is a lot of bad, but you can't do that. And I don't know why, because it's not like this. Look, I cover the NFL for NBC Sports. I've talked to people about other quarterbacks and whether or not there is this vitriol combined on one side and hagiography on the other. And I was asking a few buddies who write about the sport with me for NBC. Can you name any other quarterbacks who were like that? And funnily enough, one person said, well, Russell Wilson until a couple weeks ago. And there are some Danny Dimes guys out there who are huge supporters. I don't get it, but okay. For the most part, the good quarterbacks get a lot of love. Kirk Cousins was the one that my buddy brought up when he was in Minnesota. But long story short, you can't have just a conversation about Geno Smith. You can't have this is good, this is really bad, this is really, really, really good, this is terrible. You have to, for some reason, pick a side. And I think that's silly. Because the biggest Geno doubters in the world have to acknowledge the brilliance that Geno Smith shows. And the biggest Geno supporters in the world have to acknowledge that there are moments that are just flat out not good enough. And by not good enough, I mean not at the level that can take you to a championship level, which is the goal. And here's the thing. I'm not asking the Seahawks to bench Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith's better than Sam Howell. I'm not asking the Seahawks to trade for Sam Darnold or Justin Fields or anyone like that, because I don't think they're better than Geno Smith either. But what I will say is that based on what I've seen from Geno Smith over the last 2.5 years, what I have seen from this coaching staff thus far, and what I know about Geno Smith's age, Geno Smith is not the long-term answer for the Seattle Seahawks. Not if the goal is to win championships. If the goal is to go 9-8, 10-7, and be competitive, keep the fan base in it, get your Seattle Mariner on, Geno Smith makes a lot of sense. If your goal is to win a Super Bowl, Geno Smith is not the quarterback. Geno Smith is not the quarterback because of the salary that he makes, and it's a capped league. We can't ignore it. Geno Smith is not the guy as well because what you see is what you get. And his skill set isn't going to get better. It's going to deteriorate. I like Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith has a place in this league. I think Geno Smith has a place on the Seahawks right now. But I have seen enough to know that Geno Smith is not a good enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl. And that's ultimately what matters to me. I've never seen a worse decision from a Seattle Seahawks quarterback than that 103-yard touchdown. And I can't say it's the moment gets too big for him because Geno Smith's had a lot of great drives at ends of games. We saw it at the end of this game, or the end of regulation. Elite throws. But the reason he had to make elite throws is because he made, I'm sorry here, dumbass throws. I'm very thankful for a bye because this team, these last 6 weeks, even with the win over Atlanta, they've just driven me nuts. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Really appreciate the support. Leave your comments. Tell me what you thought about the game. Seems like I talked for 27 and a half minutes and I forgot a bunch of stuff, but